Good morning all. 28 minutes past 9. We are ready to start. Please make sure that your cell phones are off. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Sigos Ngube.
Morning, Chair.
Good morning, Mr. Behari.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, before we begin, we had stopped at PN 19, which is PN 19 from Mr. Ngqiza's statement, which was the IPID response letter. But just before we deal with that, there's some housekeeping. A document has been added to the supplementary bundle. I have discussed it with Mr. Behari and given him an opportunity to consider the document, and he has done so. And that document appears in the supplementary bundle at pages 87 to 91, 86 to 91. It is an email trail with a draft document attached to it, Chair. We'll deal with it in Mr. Behari's evidence shortly. '86 to 91 supplementary bundle. Mr. Behari, we, as I said, we were busy with PN 19, which was the 13 December 2023 letter addressed to IPID, which you had indicated in your evidence had not been sent to IPID. Do you recall that?
I do.
And Commissioner Baloyi had dealt with some aspects of...
Just a moment. Do you see that we are struggling to find our files? Just bear with us.
My apologies,
sorry about
Commissioner.
that. It's supplementary bundle page?
Page 86 to 91. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, this was the IPID response, which you had indicated was not actually sent to IPID. If we can go to your statement, which is at paragraph 181, where you deal with this aspect. On page 30, we can start on 179 on page 37, which is the alleged improper involvement in the draft response to IPID dated 13 December 2023.
That's correct.
Sorry, which bundle are we looking?
His witness statement, Commissioner Baloyi, page 37.
Mr. Behari's.
Yes, Mr. Behari's statement.
Okay, and paragraph?
Where he, paragraph 179, where he deals with the alleged improper involvement in the draft response to IPID dated 13 December 2023.
Thank you.
Now, we'll deal with the contents of the letter later, but at 179, you deal with what the allegation is against you, that the letter was improperly disputing IPID's findings relating to alleged fraud and corruption, and that the allegation is that that conduct was unauthorized or intended to mislead, which you deny. I'm interested in dealing with paragraphs 181, 182, 83 and 84, which I discussed with you just before we convened here today. At 181, you say the city manager requested that the Legal Services Department to prepare a draft response acknowledging receipt of the report and addressing certain technical issues that IPID had not clarified, and then you deal with what those issues were. And at 182, you say, I initiated the drafting of a preliminary internal response. The draft was intended for the city manager's consideration and was not intended to be finalized or dispatched until IPID clarified certain outstanding matters, as Mr. Osborne Kani promised to respond when he received instructions from the DPP. Then at 183, the draft stated that aspects of the report were vague, pending prosecutorial decisions, and that the city required clarity before taking further administrative steps. It did not reject IPID's findings in their entirety, nor did it attempt to shield any official from accountability. And then 184, which is the paragraph that I want to stress. Importantly, the letter was never sent to IPID. It remained an internal draft and was withheld precisely because the city had not yet received the necessary clarifications from IPID regarding the confidentiality classification of the report and the prosecutorial status of certain matters. Now, you will recall that yesterday in the supplementary bundle I had informed the commissioners that an additional document is to be added, and if we can go to that bundle, supplementary bundle, page 84. This is a document, an email that the Commission obtained from the city, and it was from Ms. Naika. And it is an email from you on Thursday, the 7th of December 2023, to Ms. Naika, no subject, and it says, "Hi Linda, please see revised letter for MMC. Advocate Zulu will submit comprehensive report later." And then if we go to page 85, there was an attachment, a Word attachment. That Word attachment had this one-pager which said draft for MMC, and it had the details of the recipients that the letter was being addressed to, being the Director of Investigations and Information Management of IPID and Mr. Zulu, Senior Investigator IPID. And the subject is Boksburg CAS 262/03/2023, corruption, fraud and corruption. It's got a CCN number and it says Julius Dr. Mkhwanazi. Now, if you look at that first page and you then go to PN19, which is an attachment to Mr. Ngqiza's statement. It's page 344 of his bundle, PN19. Do you have it,
Thank you,
Mr.
Chair.
Behari?
Yeah, I have that.
Can you keep both documents open? And can you read the first paragraph of the draft for MMC and confirm that that first paragraph is consistent with the first paragraph in PN19, which is the document that you said was an internal draft document? Can you read that one paragraph that appears on page 85 of the supplementary bundle? Do you have the supplementary bundle, page 85?
Yes, must I read it out?
Yes, please read it.
Okay. The supplementary bundle talks to a document. I refer to your memorandum, 1 September 2023, addressed to the Chief of Police, Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Department. This report was submitted to me during a meeting called at the Office of the Executive Mayor. Despite the manner of your approach being irregular, having excluded the HOD, HR, and city manager as accounting officer, I nonetheless received the report and annexes. It's the same that's contained in the 344, which is
Yes. And it says, I have since referred the report for consideration and implementation of the findings. So this document, that one-pager, was sent to the MMC, and that MMC would be Masuku, isn't it? Community Safety.
That's correct.
Now, Your evidence was that this document, PN19, was an internal document intended only to be for internal purposes. Did you consider MMC Masuku to be part of the internal process?
Not at that stage, ma'am. MMC Masuku would have been then, the internal would have been for us at legal. But MMC Masuku is overall, because she's overall in charge. Then she would be then, apart from legal, she would be the next link, yes.
Okay. Then there's another document on page 86, and then I'll ask you to address the commissioners on your version in your affidavit. Page 86 is another email which we've just included in the bundle this morning and which I discussed with you. It's an email from Ms. Linda Naiker on the 30th of November 2023, and it's addressed to Keletso and to Maureen. You are CC'd, one of the people that are CC'd on this letter. And the subject says forward draft response, and it says, Dear Keletso/Maureen, reference is made to the meeting held with EM and MMC, amongst others, on 09/12, which I assume to be the 12th of September. Attached hereto is the draft to be placed on MMC's letterhead, followed by her signature and transmitted to the addressee. There was an attachment, and if you go to the attachment, it's the next page, page 87. The top of the page says draft for MMC. It has the addressees being the two IPID representatives, and it has the exact same subject matter as PN19, which you said was an internal document not intended to be sent. And so if we go then to page 91, we extracted the properties of the file to see who the author was, and it has your name there as the author of this document. Now, having regard to this email and this letter, which I submit to you, the letter from page 87 to 90 is the identical letter to what is PN19, but for the signatures at the end. On page 90, there are no signatures, and on your document, which you said was never sent, is the signature of your two juniors, that this document was intended to be sent by the MMC to IPID. And we know that it was never sent, but the intention was for it to be sent based on the email that we have. In light of that, do you want to reconsider your version in your statement where you say that it was never intended to go out?
I think if I have to look at these paragraphs 182 to 184, and in light of the additional information provided this morning, there was always an intention to send out a report through to the IPID. At that stage, I received a report from the divisional heads to say it was never sent to us. But clearly the intention, as you point out now, and having looked at the matter, was clearly a document in its final form, which could have went from the city side or from our side to the city manager, to MMC, and MMC to IPID. Yes, I will accept that.
You will accept what?
I'm accepting that it is a document that was ready in the stage to be sent out externally.
I think we want you to accept more than that your version from paragraph 182 to 184 is false.
I'm not sure if it's to the extent of false, ma'am, but I'm saying that before I came to the commission, I ascertained from my divisional heads, did the document go out, and we were told no. But you're correct in terms of what is being said now, because on the 30th.
Mr. Behari, just look at paragraph 184 of your statement, page 38. It remained an internal draft and was withheld precisely because the city had not yet received the necessary clarification from IPID. It wasn't withheld, it was sent to the MMC to append her signature and put it on her letterhead. How do you reconcile that with being withheld? All that you knew was that it was never sent. But the intention on the 9th of November, when that email is sent, is for the letter to be sent.
The intention on the letter of the 30th or the email from Linda Naika was to say to the intention to be sent. I agree. So when you say it was false, I mean, that is where I'm trying to reconcile myself in terms of. Importantly, if I look at 184, importantly, the letter was never sent to IPID. It remained an internal draft, and now when I look at it, but it was, if I correlate it back to the letter or the email of the 30th of November, clearly the intention was to send it. So, let me make the concession, say, okay, it was contrary to that. If it's false, in terms of what I said in the 184, I accept that, yeah, I'll accept it from that.
And then paragraph 185 of your statement, the allegation that the draft represented an official stance by the city is incorrect. It isn't incorrect. That was a position that was the official stance by the city, because it gets sent to the MMC to put on her letterhead, to sign and to send to IPID. That must be their official position.
I agree.
Now, you obviously were aware of these emails because you copied in on that email that I had shown you. Why did you not address that in your statement at the time when you were preparing this?
At the time of preparation of the statement, the last conversation I had was with my divisional heads, and they confirmed that the document had not gone out. I did not have these documents. I could not access these documents, and hence I would have probably put that in my statement had I had access to that. Because as at the 2nd of December, when I received these documents, the statements, and all of the evidence bundles, I tried to access all my emails, and I couldn't access this because there was an incident where my emails were being deleted. But I don't want to make too much on that issue. This year, as I've seen it now, I accept that it's a document generated by myself, and it had. So I didn't have insight into this when I did my statement.
And when did you first become aware that the letter had never been sent to IPID? Because it suggests that when it's sent to the MMC to put on her letterhead and to sign it, that it would be sent. For some reason, it wasn't sent. When did you become aware that it wasn't sent?
There was another email that, the only trail I could get, there was an email sent out by Divisional Head Nkwating to IPID. That will give me a timeline, because a few days before I asked them, have this been sent out? Because I saw the signature. I saw this document here in 344, which was signed by them. And I asked them, has it been sent out? So timeline was, I can't give you the exact date, but there is an email that went out. I will try and track that, and I can say, but it should have been only last year? I think it was only last year, yeah.
Okay. So the letter seems to have served two purposes. One is for the MMC to send it to IPID, and for some reason it wasn't sent. But then there must have been a second reason, because if we look at PN 19, where it had draft for the MMC, it now has Office of the HOD. So this is now, it appears to be a document that would go out from your office.
Yes.
But then if it's worded as I referred to, so there's one author. But if we look at the signatures on page 348, it has your two juniors.
Yes, ma'am. As I said, the document, after initially receiving the IPID report and engaging with that, I did hand it over to my divisional head, Zulu. So between him and Mkhwanazi, they then drafted the document. I wasn't around when he was signing the document on the 13th of December. I only, after that, when I inquired, as the matters came out onto the open to resuscitate the Mkhwanazi matter, I asked him, but how far are we with that? And then he told me, no, it has not gone out. He provided me a copy of the document, and that is when I'm saying. But yes, it's I. If I had had the time to discuss it with him, I would have been the author ordinarily, or the secondary person signing overall. It will come then from the divisional head who drafted the document, and then I would have signed.
So you don't know why PN 19 was signed by your juniors, and you don't know who it was sent to, because it must have been signed for a purpose.
No, I'm not aware. I know that from the signatures itself, but I didn't finalize this document on my side. I inquired about this after becoming aware last year, And then I was told, no, it has not been sent out yet. But there was always an intention to send it out to the office of the MMC.
And is there a reason why the election was made for the response to IPA to go out under the name of the MMC, Community Safety? Why not under the city manager?
The report came through to the mayor and the MMC. So the MMC was involved, and she said because she will communicate that to the IPAD's office, because we were asking. But if you look at the addressee in the IPAD, it was the chief of police. City manager general would have been in the office to send as being overall in charge of the chief of police. So we were just sent to Linda. Hence, the communication was to Linda Naika to look at the MMC, and then between them to liaise and see who would be sending off the document.
Well, you must have known that the decision was made, or you made the decision that the MMC must send it out, because you sent the email to Linda Naika saying for the MMC, here's the draft for the MMC. You don't say here's the draft for the city manager. You're sending it to Linda Naika, who is the city manager's PA. Is that not so?
That's correct.
And she must send it to the MMC, not to the city manager.
Yes. Because of the way, most of the reports, forensic reports or regulatory body reports come to the office of the city manager. This went specifically to the executive mayor and the MMC. The executive mayor gave that to the MMC. So that is why the trail then was do we go send it back to the MMC? And then if the MMC said, no, I want it as an administration, she would have referred. So it would have been between the city manager and the MMC.
I want to suggest to you that the MMC was, the decision was made for it to go under the MMC's name in order to disguise the fact that it was really the city manager's position, but she couldn't officially put that as her position. The letter was protecting Commissioner Mkhwanazi. It was defending the allegations of fraud and corruption against him, and she didn't want her name under that letter.
Chair, I can't to the extent of what is described in, but I can't discount that as well. But the instruction was to give it to, my engagement was with the MMC's office, her PA, and I've engaged with the MMC as well on the issue, but I can't discount the fact that the city manager did not, decided not to do that. But I was a direct communication with the MMC, especially because it came through the political side. One of the issues that the city manager was very annoyed about was why was this report gone to the mayor and the MMC, and it could have been then directing that way to the MMC's office. So since you received it, you deal with it. But I just follow the instructions. I engaged with the MMC, I engaged with the city manager, and then I said send it to the MMC. Hence the letter said to Linda to send it to the MMC.
Okay, we can move on then to deal with the next aspect, which is the contents of the response on PN 19.
Maybe before you do that, Mr. Gals, just to clear my confusion here. Mr. Behari, the PN 19 letter is dated the 6th of December 2023. And then in the supplementary, these new documents in the supplementary bundle, at page 84, that's your email to Linda Naika. That email is the 7th of December. And then you say, hi Linda, please see revised letter for MMC. Advocate Zulu will submit the comprehensive report. So, and what you attach, I think what you've discussed with Ms. Sigals, Ngube, is page 85 is what was attached to that letter. So, and if that is so, on the 7th of December, you send this draft at page 85. And the very last sentence of that letter says, I have since referred the report for consideration and implementation of the findings. This is on the 7th of December. But on the 30th of November, still in that supplementary bundle at page 86, on the 30th of November, you have prepared a completely different draft, which This is on the 30th of November. You've prepared a different draft, which Ms. Siggals will discuss with you the contents of. But this is the one that ends with you don't accept the suggestion of IPID. Please, and then you say to IPID, please respond within the next 10 days. And that letter again would have come from the MMC at page 87. So it would have come from the MMC. So on the 30th of November, it's a completely different posture to one taken on the 7th of December, which says it will be implemented, and still coming from the same MMC. And then we know from PN 19 that it's again a completely different letter on the 6th of December. Can you just explain what was going on here?
Thank you.
A decision not to comply, and then there's a decision to comply, and all of it comes under your hand. So you must have thought about it in a certain way.
Mr. Baloy, thank you for that. If you look at document page 86, which is the letter from Linda Naika, of the page 86 of the supplementary.
November, your email.
30th of November, yes.
This is Linda Naika's email.
Linda Naika's email?
Yeah?
To the PA of the MMC.
Yes.
Reference is made to a meeting held with the EM and MMC, amongst others, on the 9th of or 12th of September. Attached here to be the draft to be placed on the MMC's letterhead. So that was the document that was drafted in that draft form, and it correlates to exactly to the document PN 19. Thereafter, there were some revisions that were to be placed, and hence, in the email from myself to Linda, I said on the 7th of December, I, Linda, kindly see revised data for MMC. Advocate Zulu will submit a comprehensive report. That was the end of where I was there. Then, on the 6th of December, there was a letter.
A day before.
A day before.
A day before, you send a draft that says, from the MMC, that says, I have since referred the report for consideration and implementation of the findings. Because, maybe let me just explain what I'm trying to clarify. It's the PN 19 letter is not which is the 6th of December. It's not an implementation of the findings, as you will discuss with Ms. Nube now.
No.
It's a challenge of the IPID report, and yet, and unless I'm reading it wrong, and yet on the 7th of December, the letter that you attach says, I have since referred the report for consideration and implementation of the findings. So if page 85 in the supplementary bundle had gone out to IPID would have been under the impression, was being given the impression that its findings are being implemented. That's the impression it was being given in this draft that you are sending on the 7th, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with me?
It certainly looks like that.
Yes. And yet, on the 6th, your office, a day before, has prepared and sent out what you say is an internal document, has sent out a document that is not implementing the IPID report. So there's this worrying impression that it seems there was an intention to mislead IPID to say we are implementing when in fact the internal document clearly was not intending to implement.
Chair, I'm just trying to get the part where we said we're implementing.
It's on page 85.
It's 85, the very last sentence.
Page 85. Okay. But to correlate that back to the, I'm trying to get it back to the first document here. You see,
The first document is emailed on the 30th, page 86, 30th of November, and that document is to be found 87 to 90. You are the author, as we can see from 91. That document is identical to PN 19. That was sent on the 30th of November. The document that Commissioner Baloy is asking you about is on page 85, which was sent on the 7th of December, which is a one-pager that effectively says we are considering and implementing the findings of IPID. And there's a difference of 7 days. So the 30th of November, you sent the long letter where you rubbish IPID's findings, but on the 7th, there is a one-pager where you're effectively communicating that there's going to be an implementation of the findings. So the question is, what brought about the change? Is it because the MMC didn't agree with the letter that was sent to her on the 30th of November, where she had to sign and put on her letterhead?
No, Chair, we didn't. I'm trying to see if this should have been a full document. I mean, the 85, there's, you know, I don't know if there was any other additional documents. It's just one page. And,
Yeah.
I agree. It says I've since referred the report for consideration and implementation. That's from the MMC. It was an earlier document. She would have said, I've referred the document for consideration and implementation. And which you would have done already when we had the meeting for the initial meeting. What does it say? Okay. So there's no dates and so on. Hence, it's what I'm finding. But the intention of the MMC, because the report was given to her and to the mayor, would have been to respond to IPID and say, I've since reported to fulfill her functions. Her report would have gone to the city manager to implement. City manager then would have. So this document of the 6th of December would have been drafted then for the purposes of. So it's an engagement to Linda to say that Advocate Zulu will do a comprehensive report, but there's something that I'm missing here. I can't have a two-line, but there was never intention to.
No.
It did challenge the contents of the IPID report in terms of its year. It was signed on the 13th of December, so that is the timeline I'm trying to wrap my head against.
Well, the 6th December letter, the letter that's dated 6th December and signed by your juniors on the 13th of December, was obviously drafted prior to the 30th of November when it was sent to the MMC. It was sent to the MMC as a draft for her to append her signature and put it on her letterhead. The wording of that letter at page 87 to 90 is identical to what is your juniors signed. So the draft was obviously prepared before 6 December because what you intended to do was to send this to the MMC. Then on the 7th, a different draft is sent by you to Linda to communicate a different instruction or a different letter to the MMC saying, here's the revised letter for the MMC. And Commissioner Baloy wants to know, why is there a revision and a substantial revision? We've gone from a 4-page document to a 1-pager saying we're going to implement the findings.
So the 1-pager, as I said, I would not have, in my sense, only had a 1-pager document to implement the findings. Hence, I don't know where and what is before me, of course, is I can't dispute this now. But in terms of what there's no document where even this document is unsigned or there's no indication of who's drafted this document. But it would have went more to that. But I have since referred the report for consideration and implementation. That would have been then an initial assessment, I believe, to the IPID to say that then there were the follow-up documents that would have been drafted in this regard. I'm not aware, as I said, I don't have the full documents on that 1-pager. It seems to be an unfinished document. But
Mr. Behari, can you go to page 91, which is the document properties of the long letter, the long draft, which has your name as the author? Do you see the title of the document? Draft for MMC IPID Mkhwanazi, just as you pronounce his name, Mkhwanazi with the A, 23/11/2023. So the document was drafted on the 23rd of November, 2023, by you. It is then sent as a draft to Linda to send to the MMC on the 30th of November for her to put her signature and send it to IPID. She doesn't do that clearly because on the 7th of December, you send a different letter to Linda to send to the MMC, which effectively says we are implementing the findings. It's not a difficult trail to follow.
Council, the page 91 refers to the author for me authoring the document on page 87. Right. That is a full document here, which is different from the one-pager. Right.
Yes, that's what we're saying. It is, the one page is not an incomplete document. It's only missing her signature. It's got the addresses. It doesn't have a date, but it has it's a complete letter. The report for consideration and implementation of the findings. All that it needs is her signature. And you don't even say in the letter that you sent to, the email that you sent to Linda on page 84, you say, please see the revised letter. You don't even refer to it as a draft letter. You say the revised letter for MMC. Then you say Advocate Zulu will submit comprehensive report later. And I submit to you that that comprehensive report is PN 19 because the MMC didn't want to send PN 19. She didn't want to put a signature on it. You changed the letter on her instruction most likely, and then you drafted PN 19 as the report to IPID. This was the city's report. This is the comprehensive report that's being referred to.
The one of the,
on page 84.
The one on page 84.
Yes, you converted the long document, page 87, into a report because the MMC didn't want to append her signature to it.
Chair, the MMC at all stages in the discussion, and if you look at let's look at the page 85, Chair, if I may. The opening part is just the same. The issue is, unless I'm saying I'm worried about this not being a full document. I've never seen a document in all, even when we, that is a one-pager deals with this now. I've since referred the report for consideration, yes. That was in a draft form. I don't know what the content of it is, but the MMC at all stages, because she was engaged in terms of referring to and reporting back to IPID. We drafted the document, but we did raise the concerns. Now, this document here of the 6th of December would have been the full report that would have been sent to the MMC's office and to the IPID. Now, I ascertained from the divisional heads on the 13th, or who signed on the 13th, that this document never went out. But I see here, please see revised letter from MMC, for MMC, Advocate Zulu, on the 7th of December. And that is where perhaps I'm struggling a bit, but it was never a document that was, as I said, I don't have the full document here, the 85 one. I've never done any document in this time. The trail that you're referring to on page 30, on page 91, refers to the other document on page 87, which then seems to be the one document that comes over. Is the page 87 document, the draft there to MMC, is the same document here with 344 PN 19, which has the issue of the office of the HOD. So there was clearly an intention to send this through to the IPID. We drafted the document, but I ascertained from internal staff it never went out to IPID. And I don't know what was the reason for that, but from having deleted this document here and then transposed it, it would have been, and even there, it doesn't come from the office of the HOD. I would not have sent out a document. So these are some of the issues I found that after I became aware of this, in fact, only last year, when I should have been more prudent and followed up and said, where's the documents? Why have we not sent it out or whatever it is? But that was never done. But it was not for, and I say the one pager, I can't for the, is there no email trail for that or trail for the document preparation for that one pager as well? Chair, I'm just checking if there's something again.
Yeah, Mr. Behari, I'm not sure what it is you're questioning about the one pager. I mean, your draft, which you admitted, which is at page 87, which was supposed to come from the MMC, that's a long letter.
Yeah.
That later becomes PN 19.
Yes.
it doesn't have a date and it doesn't have a signature at the bottom. So the fact that the one-pager doesn't have a date and it doesn't have a signature at the bottom must be irrelevant, because you have admitted page 87, which lacks a date and it lacks a signature.
Yeah.
So that cannot be a distinguishing factor for debate, or that creates uncertainty just because the one-pager doesn't have a date and it doesn't have a signature. You admit you sent the email to Linda at page 84, and you call it a revised letter. So it is a different letter to the one at page 87. And here's what I suspect, or what I want to suggest may have happened, and Ms. Ncube will take it further if she wants to. You start off with the letter that you own, that page 87, the long one. You take ownership of it. That's where you start off. It's supposed to go out in the name of the MMC. Either you had a change of heart. So according to you, rather, even before I get there, as far as you know, in fact, on the face of it, you have transmitted it to Ms. Naika. It has been transmitted. And you then either have a change of heart, or the MMC refused to sign and append her signature to send out your long letter. That's why you send a revised letter. So the MMC would have said, I'm not sending this out. You're going to implement. And so you do the one-pager. But having decided to do that, you and the city manager have agreed already, before you sent the email of the 7th, have already agreed you're going to handle things differently. That is why you have PN19 now coming under the heading of Office of the HOD. It's no longer the MMC. So the change is not only what is being conveyed to IPID, that conflicting positions that are being adopted, but in fact, what was originally intended to be sent by the MMC now comes from your office, not the MMC. That's the plan. And so it seems to me that the intention was to convey different things. The MMC would have communicated, if all of these had gone out, the MMC would have said to IPID, we are implementing, and your department, in collusion with what the city manager wanted to be done, would in fact be debating with IPID what they have said what they've directed you must implement. That's what it looks like.
Commissioner, I hear the trail of what your thought is. I'm just saying, on the document which I agree was 87 was a draft for MMC. This document of the Office of the HOD, I'm not sure what was the understanding with that. I only became, I said last year, when I looked at it and inquired about it, when the matter resuscitated, what has happened, because I spoke to Jabulo Zulu. Initial instruction was to him to say, look at this, look at the criminal aspects on those issues, as I covered yesterday. So only uncovered that later on, that it was signed by Thabo Makoting as acting HOD. The rationale for having the Office of the HOD, because the Office of the HOD will never deal with that document. So that is why the content of the letter, I accept. The content of the letter accept was drafted by my team. I read the content of the letter, and it did pick up on the issues and I think what Chair said yesterday also, I reflected on that. It is looking like as if we are attacking a charge against an employee. I had reflected on that, and very clearly it does look like that. And to go here, my only concern is, Chair, is that page 85 or 85 of the supplementary bundle. I've never will draft a letter in this fashion. Hence, I've said, is there some kind of a trail, audit trail, to show that I was the author of this? Because I don't know if it was created, but I'm saying that I will never draft a letter in this fashion. I've never done that. Even if you look at the other drafts such letter, we speak about please respond, and I will send it to Linda. And then once they agree on it, they will put in whoever needs to be done, even the MMC. But I will not do something like this, and I don't recall ever having done this document.
Yeah, well, your email says it's a revised letter. What would you have revised? What would have been the revision? That at least you must remember. Because you wrote this long letter and then you say, I've now revised the letter, find attached. What would have been the revision?
But Chair, on the emails, that's what I'm trying to say, please see the revised letter. Is it this document itself that was attached? I don't see an attachment on that document.
I'm asking you, well, it has to be, because you say, please see revised letter to MMC. Advocate Zulu will submit a comprehensive report letter. So it has to be the same subject unless you produce other documents. But as matters stand, it has to be. And so my question is, if you are sending a revised letter, what would have been the revision? What would you have been saying in the revised letter?
Well, Chair, the revised letter would have been to say that as I said, I can't see the attachment, but let me not, for the sake of I can't see the attachment or the proper document here. If this is a revised letter, it doesn't seem to me a document I would draft on its own, standing on its own. It could be a letter just for the MMC to have written to them to say we are implementing, and then subsequent to that there would have been another letter prepared for the MMC or the city manager, depending on the arrangements for it to go out. But if it's said that this is a revised letter, I don't see an attachment on the email, which would normally be there. But let me. I don't want to take it further. Let me just say the MMC would have said, and the MMC did indicate from the beginning that she wanted to, we must implement the report.
You say she did indicate
that
she wanted implementation of the
yes.
IPID report.
That's correct.
Okay. So I think with that now, then page 85 would make sense then. If she had indicated to you that she wants to implement, then that last sentence in page 85.
It'll make sense.
It makes sense.
It makes sense, save for me on with other stuff. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. That last sentence says, you remember that first paragraph where you've agreed it's exactly the same as the first paragraph in PM 19 and in your long letter. And then the last sentence I'm referring to says, I have since referred to the report for consideration and implementation of the findings. That's the last sentence in that one-page letter. That would have come from the MMC but drafted by you. And what I'm saying is then that last sentence that I've just read now is then consistent with what you're saying, that the MMC did indicate to you that she wanted the report to be implemented.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Sorry, Ms. Sigels-Ncube. Mr. Behari, you say you would never have written a letter of the nature of what's on page 85. For argument's sake, not that I'm accepting what you are saying, but for argument's sake, give us what you wrote, because you must have written something. You write the email to Ms. Linda Naika, and you say, please see revised letter. If what is attached to that email or appears to be attached to that email is what you say you would never have written, give us what you wrote, because surely there must have been something that was attached to your email to Ms. Naika. Give us what you attached.
That is where
which was revised and therefore no longer the long letter. Yeah. Give us what you attached.
That is why, Chair, I'm saying that in the document from me to Linda, usually when you attach a document, there is an attachment on that. I don't see it here, And I can't at this stage even give you any other document for that. But so that's it, hence I'm saying, let me accept that the MMC, the attitude was to implement. Hence, I'll support what was said here in the document. But I know that I don't normally usually write, unless it's I'll do the full document, and I'll do any additions, only parts that need to be edited in the document itself. But this seems to be just by the MMC saying we will implement. Then there were subsequent reports thereafter. But as I said, I can't.
I'm not sure that answers me, but I'll leave it. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Behari, it's probably my oversight because I didn't think that we would have to have this debate about that document, but I do have the original email. I'm going to flight it for you so that you can see, and we will include it in the bundle. This is your email on the 7th of December 2023 at 13:01 to Linda, and there's the attachment. Hi Linda, please see revised letter for MMC. And then if I go to the attachment, which I've opened now, that's the one-pager. Do you see it?
Yes.
It's just a one-pager. That's the actual attachment. And then, unfortunately, I need to save the document in order to get the properties. And if I click on the document properties and I go to summary, the author is Kemi Behari. And if you look at the title, it says Draft Revised Letter for MMC IPID Mkhwanazi KB, which is your initials, 07/12/2023. Does that assist you in any way?
It does. Then the 07, so that was done after this document here was drafted. So it would have just been a single document to say, are we implementing?
Yes, that's what we've been saying the whole time, is that it was revised
But now,
after the...
at least I have the comfort of having seen this here. I couldn't, and I know that.
You see, I never understand that. I never understand that. Why should your testimony be tailored in accordance with what you see or do not see? Shouldn't your testimony be what actually happened?
Che,
I don't understand that, Mr. Behari.
Che, my testimony is on what I can recall. It's what I can recall from that time. So when I spoke, or when I looked at what...
I'm very sorry, Mr. Sigars. Yes,
apologies.
yes.
So when in looking at the additional bundle now, 85, okay, if this was then just a part that would have been then, it means that only the opening paragraph would have been there, and it's incorrect from what is contained in the finalized PN 19.
So it was incorrect for you to say you would never write a letter like this. We see that you have.
It would have been
so
drafted.
it was incorrect.
It is incorrect.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Girls.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, I'll be guided by you whether we need to go through the contents of the letter, because I think we dealt with the contents in a different context when we dealt with the...
No, please do. I actually also have quite a number of parts circled in that letter, so
Okay.
I think we should give
Chair.
you the first part.
Mr. Behari, I don't have too many questions about this letter, but as you heard, Chair does. Insofar as the contents is concerned, so we're on PN 19, which is the one that says Office of the HOD, not the draft. At page 344, which is the introductory paragraph. You seem here in paragraph 1 to admonish IPID for the way in which they address the letter, so to the city. Because you say, this report was submitted to me during a meeting called at the office of the executive mayor, so you clearly drafting it on behalf of somebody who was at that meeting, and we know you initially weren't in that meeting. Despite the manner of your approach being irregular, having excluded the HOD, HR, and city manager as accounting officer, I nonetheless received the report in annexures. I want to understand why you're taking that position with IPID when your evidence yesterday was that the letter was addressed to the Chief of Police and he had to address the response here too. Why are you taking issue with the fact that they're addressing it to the Chief of Police but using it as a way to escape the fact that you weren't involved in the response on the disciplinary proceedings aspect?
Chair, the issue is not about the addressing of the Chief of Police. The issue is with the entrance into the city of the documents. Regulatory body reports come to the office of the city manager, and for implementation, it deals with administration. This went into the political space in terms of the mayor and so on. So that is where the issue was raised, and that is where, in terms of what CM says, but how are we implementing a report not addressed to us but went to the political sphere, and that is where this part comes from, Chair.
But there's nothing wrong in them addressing it to the Chief of Police because isn't he the person that is supposed to, as you say, deal with the discipline of Brigadier Mkhwanazi, and they are proposing, in fact, they're directing a disciplinary process?
It's not, the addressee on the document is not the issue, Chair. It is the entrance into the city, where it usually comes to the city manager as the accounting officer. This went through to the political space with the mayor and the MMC. And that is where the query was about why did they go there? Is it for them to get involved or should I get involved? So that is what the questions posed by the city manager. Hence this was drafted in that way.
No, I don't accept that, and I think the reason why you did take issue with it going to the Chief of Police is exactly because of what Chair said to you yesterday. The allegations are that you were part of a clique that was trying to protect Brigadier Mkhwanazi. The Chief of Police is on the other side of that equation. If the document goes to him, he's now aware that IPID is investigating the matter and a response is needed for IPID, and you don't want him to be part of that process, and that is why you're taking issue with the way that IPID is dealing with this.
Chair, I do not support that. Chief of Police was aware. If the document was addressed to him, he was aware, and I think he was made aware and he had the response for what is required. The issue here is about why the difference when all regulatory bodies, whether it's SIU or whoever else, comes through the city manager. Why the difference in this particular matter? If it was to say, no, we don't trust the city manager, they should have said that some way. But why the difference? And that is what the issue was. It wasn't about the addressee being the Chief of Police. It should have been addressed to the accounting officer if it's dealing with that. But the Chief of Police is there's nothing wrong with that. The issue is not with him and whether he has knowledge or not. But that is not the issue. The issue is the entrance into the city.
Then, if you go to page 345 of the letter,
Ms. Nuda, maybe
yes.
before you do that, if you could just remind us, either you or Mr. Behari, this thing that which you are dealing with in that paragraph 1 is the IPID letter addressed to the executive mayor MMC. Who was it addressed to?
No, it was addressed to Chief Mapieye.
Yes.
But it was sent through, the routing was not to the administration, it was to the mayor and to the MMC.
I see.
So I think that's where the concerns were on that.
All right, and I just wanted to be reminded of what happened, in fact. Thank you.
Okay. At 344 paragraph 2, you then deal with the allegations of fraud and corruption, and you say, I have consulted with internal staff, and I am advised that based on the current evidence, it will be difficult to prove fraud and corruption. Your report attaches little or no value to the statement of Director Mkhwanazi, in bracket suspect, close bracket. Full stop. Now, you would remember the engagement that you had with Chair about Director Mkhwanazi's statement. You say to IPID it attaches no value to that statement. If, as Chair says, if they attached any value to that statement, isn't he effectively admitting to corruption and fraud based on his statement?
On his statement, I accepted it yesterday that it clearly is a case of corruption and fraud. Yeah, but to what extent was we going into that? Not corruption so much that we could find, but even on fraud. And that is why I've asked Advocate Zulu to look at both the elements of fraud and corruption and trying to link it to the statement from the iPad, all the witnesses in the iPad, as well as that of Mkhwanazi. So this is basically drafted then to look at what were the possible issues for us would be going forward in implementation of that. So it wasn't to say that, and again to come back to having considered what Chair said yesterday, it could be looking as if we were putting it on a defense. And I say, and I accept that it could have been the way it is now been looked at, but it could be we're putting a defense. But if it's for implementation by the city, we need to look at how we can cover all the bases in that.
No, the paragraph starts by saying it will be difficult to prove fraud and corruption. Then you say your report attaches little or no value to the statement of Director Mkhwanazi. What you're effectively saying is you haven't considered his version, or you haven't put sufficient weight on his version, because if you did, you would have the same view as us that it will be difficult to prove fraud and corruption. You're not saying what you've just said now. In this letter, that's not what you're saying.
No. Is it possible that we can go back to, because as I said, this was drafted by myself and initiated by me, it was finalized by Advocate Zulu. Is it possible at all to go back to that statement of Mkhwanazi in terms of what you're referring to here? Is it possible that we could look at in terms of what was the assessment done?
You want to go to Brigadier Mkhwanazi's statement?
Yes.
I think also before we go there, so that we can understand how much involvement you had in this draft report, because I don't want a situation where you will then try and disavow yourself of having been part of a particular paragraph or statement by saying that Mr. Zulu was the drafter of that paragraph. So maybe if you can tell us what aspect of this letter you had actual involvement in, and also you must have approved this letter when you sent it to the MMC.
Yeah. Chair, when the report came through initially, we went through the report and I asked Advocate Zulu, look at the fraud and corruption part. This is what our interest was. And thereafter this document was drafted by Advocate Zulu. And there was a draft in terms of all these elements that we had a discussion on it, and I agreed on the definitions in terms of fraud and corruption, and did it meet what was contained in the IPAD report. Hence, it's crafted in this way. So my involvement was initially to hand over to Advocate Zulu to look at this particular issues, but I then familiarized myself with the entire report, and which I supported.
And you supported it?
Yeah. But the final signed document, Chair, I only, as I said, when I followed up last year, that's when I realized that it was signed by another divisional that was acting in my stead, and it never came back to me to finalize, but I supported the document.
Can I, just to be clear, the signed version is exactly the same as the one in the supplementary bundle?
Yeah.
The one that you sent. Okay. That's one. Two, when you say you support it, you are not qualifying your involvement with the letter or the acceptance of its contents, because
No.
it goes under your name. It goes out from you. So you must have agreed with everything that's in it. It reflects your position as well, not just the two signatories.
Chair, at the time when it was signed by D.H. Mkhwanazi, I had not, as I said, it was signed when I was not in the office.
Yes.
That was the process between Jabulo Zulu. My initial saying was look at the fraud and corruption aspects and drafted it. I subsequently looked at the content and I supported the content.
Because it doesn't differ differ from the one that you prepared and sent to the MMC.
It doesn't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So what is it that you want us to do, Mr. Behari?
It's about Mkhwanazi's statement where you refer to it was difficult to prove fraud and corruption. Your report attaches little or no value to the statement of Mkhwanazi. So I'm just trying to check if we can just go there onto his statement.
What is it about Mr. Mkhwanazi's statement that you want us to look at?
Chair, the statement to the iPad. I just wanted to look at exactly what was said. I can't refer to my own copy, but I want to look at the statement just to address this issue, because why would we then put something like that? You attach little of no value to the statement of Director Mkhwanazi. There must have been something that would have led to us.
Because in the statement to the Chief of Police, he refers to both memoranda, and he says the said memorandum hasn't been signed or approved. So that's the CAT one. And then the Medi 24, on the donations, he says this process is awaiting our finalization of all the process that must be followed for the finalization of the memorandum of understanding. So he accepts that the two memoranda have not been signed and approved. So I'm not sure what you want us to look at.
I just want to look at the iPad report and the statement to say where would have been that we would have mentioned that it states that the iPad report, in terms of fraud and corruption, attaches little or no value. Just to make, from my side, address that part. So if I have a look at that quickly to say why would it be, that we would have raised such an issue, to say it raises no value to the statement of the Director Mkhwanazi.
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. You want to look at the iPad report to see what they say about fraud and corruption and whether they took his statement into account and why you responded in the way that you did.
The statement of Mkhwanazi in the iPad report.
Sorry, I'm coming to your assistance, Mr. Behari. Let us please assist Mr. Behari. Let's direct him to where the statement is. My co-commissioner, Commissioner Kumalo, has it, so that he may have a look.
Chair, I also understood Mr. Behari to say he wants to look at the iPad report here, where they suggest, where they speak about fraud and corruption and why he would then say, okay, so the iPad report is the one we've been JM19, which is page 101 of Mr. Mapie's annexures, and then Commissioner Kumalo will give
We'll assist with
Brigadier Mkhwanazi's statement.
Yeah. But whilst you are at it, Mr. Behari, once you find the statement, I want you to show us where in that statement we are to find the sort of exculpatory material that would have led you to say your report attaches little or no value to the statement of Director Mkhwanazi. And you making the point in the context of a suggestion that it will be difficult to prove fraud and corruption. You can only say that if in the statement that you now want, there is that sort of exculpation. I hope you will show us where that exculpation is.
Thank you, Chair. That is the purpose why.
Because it's pointless for you to say little or no value is attached to that statement. If that statement does not show the sort of exculpation that says it will be difficult to prove fraud or you get my point.
That is what I'm trying to get
So let's wait for you to find that statement and let's see you show us that exculpation.
So, Council, did we find that in what Mapie's bundle or Anisha bundle here?
101, JM19 101 is the iPad report.
Just so that we use the same bundle. I was looking at the River Space bundle, but I've now looked at the Mapie bundle. In the Mapie bundle is JM15 on page 88.
15.
So just so that we use the same file and not different files.
I will give you enough time for you to go through it and show us what you wanted to show us and also show us what I have asked you to show us.
Okay. counsel, is this the letter that Mapie, wasn't there also an affidavit that Mkhwanazi did in the iPad when iPad spoke to him?
Not that we are aware of. The IPOD report simply speaks about Commissioner Spies having conducted a preliminary investigation. It doesn't speak of them having interviewed Brigadier Mkhwanazi at all or obtaining a statement from him, unless you are aware that that did happen.
So if we are referring to this document 88, I just want to see, if I may say, even if it's 5 minutes, just to try and see, because I do recall there was an affidavit where I put approached.
What did you say about 5 minutes? I'm sorry.
If I may just look at some other information, because I do recall there was a document where IPID interviewed.
There was a warning statement that you're referring to. We don't have that.
You don't have the warning.
I think there was the warning. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
You would have seen that. Okay. Let's take.
We'll give you 5 minutes. We'll adjourn. In fact, we will come back in when we are told to come back. Let's
Thank you,
adjourn.
Chair.
Thank you.
Just to bring to your attention, we will reconvene at 11:15. 11:15.
Record.